Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. What is one African country, namely Malawi, doing to reduce poverty and to combat climate change? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other hot button issues. Welcome back to our program. Poverty, literacy, climate change. These are issues that are of great importance to leaders all around the world. Today we're going to talk with a person who represents Malawi at the United Nations, who's been dealing with these issues and has some interesting suggestions that should be of assistance to not only the people in Africa, but also people all around the world. My guest today is His Excellency Ambassador Brian Bowler, who is the permanent representative of the Republic of Malawi to the United Nations. Prior to this appointment, Ambassador Bowler was Malawi's High Commissioner to India, and previously he was Malawi's envoy to Belgium and the European Union. Ambassador Bowler, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Bill, thanks for having me this afternoon. It's really nice to be with you guys.
I appreciate you being with me. We're going to get into those hot button issues in just a moment, but give us a little overview of Malawi. Where is it located? How large is it? How large is your population? Who are some of your neighbors?
Excellent. We're in the southern part of Africa. We bordered in the north by Tanzania, we have Mozambique and Zambia. Our country, beautiful Malawi, is about 45,000 square miles, Pennsylvania more or less. We have a population just under 14 million, so we're a fair-sized country. Geographically, on the east of the country, from north to south, we have the beautiful Lake Malawi, of which is our paradise spot and one of our major tourist attractions. We do have diverse cultures throughout the whole country as citizenry, but we try and call ourselves Malawians. We have different ethnicities, but we've now progressed and we're now all Malawians, and I think that's something progressive. Our main beliefs is Christianity, where at least 75 to 80% of our country have Christian faith, and we do have religious tolerance throughout. We have Muslims and various other religions. So we are a good nation overall.
Now, climate change is affecting every country. Malawi is no different from all the other countries around the world. You mentioned Lake Malawi, though. That is a pristine natural resource. It's of great importance to people in not only in your country, but I'm sure to the whole continent of Africa. It's as large, I think, as the state of Vermont, and over 1 million people depend upon that lake for their livelihood or water supplies and that type of thing. How is climate change affecting that lake or Malawi in general?
Excellent. Well, Lake Malawi, commonly known as the Calendar Lake, because it's about 365 miles long.
And about 365 days of the year?
Exactly.
Very good.
And about 56 miles wide. But the problem with this climate change is the unpredictability of the weather patterns, and more so the direct rainfall in the country. Quite rightly, this lake has provided a huge amount of coexistence around its bases, and particularly also providing safe and drinking water for the country. Also, bearing in mind that we are a hydroelectricity dependent country because of our vast lakes and our rivers, we tend to generate our own electricity. So when you have unpredictable weather patterns, this becomes a great challenge, not only for the agriculture of the nation, but also for ability to provide sustainable power, which is a core ingredient for developing. At present, we are going through a major challenge because of this unpredictability of the weather patterns. We are also predominantly agriculture producing as a nation, and having areas of the country where, like the lowlands, we generally would provide during the rainy season floodplains to grow rice and various other crops, no longer are becoming the floodplains. So this has changed the lives of everybody around this area. So for us in Africa and us in Malawi, climate change is serious.
It seems that everyone is affected by it. We cannot get away from it. And of course, indirectly related to it in some cases and directly in others are the animal species around the world. And of course, Africa is just it's one of the richest continents. I think it's the second largest continent land-wise and also the second largest population-wise, but has the richness of all of the diversity of the animals. You have beautiful animals like zebras and elephants and lions, and these beautiful creatures are being threatened by climate change, but also by poachers and by other people like that. Do you see that happening in your own country as far as the animals, the species being reduced, that poaching is taking place, or certainly in other areas in Africa? I know it's the case with the chimpanzees and the apes and that type of thing. But are you having that situation in Malawi?
Yes. Funny enough, when you look at the part of the MDG 7, the sustainable environmental sustainability, one has to consider that whilst Malawi is definitely on track on achieving this as one of our MDGs, the challenge really is what you've cited yourself. We as a nation have realized this, as Malawi is one of the few large lakes of the world that has been termed a natural park or national park. This is because of our huge richness in the particular species of the fish in our part of our world. Malawi also is regarded as the world's largest aquarium because of the variety of species that we do have. And when you do have the breeding patterns changing because the depth of water, the warmth of water changing throughout, this does affect the sustainability of our fishing industry and also the fish in the lakes. And this has a knock-on effect. As you have less fish, people tend to fish closer to the shores, and this affects the breeding programs. And eventually, being very desperate, it affects the economics of the people who live around the lake, and also fish being a sustainable product for us to live off.
Right. Do you have any programs to protect the wildlife in your country, for example, the lions or the zebras or the other wildlife that's in your area? Do you work within Malawi or also with neighboring countries?
Yes, we as a country have our own national programs which are a priority, not only because we look at the animal wildlife as a major tourist attraction, but also for the very reason that it is a fundamental part of our ecosystem and the human race. We do have our national parks. We have Kasungu National Park, we have Lefua National Park in the south, and we have major breeding programs. We have relocation programs. We've just relocated 58 elephants from one national park to a particular national park in the south of our country. And also we have the rhino, the black rhino breeding program. So we're much on track, and of course these programs are being made available through government interventions, government financing, but also our partners who have a national interest to maintain this particular human pride.
Do you find that the population's becoming more concerned about the loss of species, such as the reduction of elephants or whatever the case might be? Do you find that they're getting more acclimated to trying to preserve them and to make sure that we don't lose those?
Yes, there have been some very creative initiatives, again thanks to the conservation wildlife programs and projects which have been run, Wildlife International programs, who have now taught the villagers who are living close to the game parks that it is in their interest to sustain the wildlife. In the past, poachers would go out and be able to poach some wildlife and probably have a fair meal for one day. But eventually there will be no animals to poach. So they've now realized by having sustainable programs, by bringing tourists into these particular wildlife parks, they can actually sustain a huge income as the environment. And you can see clearly that the villages which are surrounding the game parks are now benefiting from infrastructure, schools, and various hospitals and activity programs which they very much need in these communities. And this money is all derived from the tourists visiting this game park. So it's a win-win situation.
And apparently the natural habitat ecotourism trade is certainly on the upswing, and more people are interested in doing it, and that is certainly going to provide a livelihood for people who might be poaching or who may want to earn their money some other way. So it's certainly a win-win situation.
Yes, it is.
It certainly is.
And also because in our country we've outlawed the trading, and some we have rangers protecting some of our more vulnerable wildlife, and this is also added to preserving them. We also have heavy sentencing for poachers who are poaching the preserved stock, like the rhinos, the elephants and the lions, and mostly poaching is now on the decrease. We have a total ban on ivory and skins as well.